where is Apple in AI? I think that is sort of an interesting question. From what I've heard, and we're very much sort of like, many birdies on playing telephone tag here, so take it for what it's worth. Apple was caught pretty flat-footed by ChatGPT in particular. Like, they, of course, GPT sort of existed. GPT-3 was clearly the sort of thing, and Apple had basically no project sort of working on it, and then they had to like sort of spin up very quickly. By all accounts, they are spinning up. They just released this paper last week detailing like this new model they have, all this training stuff. There was a lot of like oohing and awing on Twitter about the degree of information Apple was sharing and like how detailed it was, and about information about the training runs and all this sorts of bits and pieces.
More and people were than any other big AI researchers these days in big tech.
Right, of course they are.
The takeaway.
No, I mean, I was actually, I'm like, come on. I was feeling sort of, these people need to read more stratechery. Like, of course they are. It's a total, and this is why Apple's overall probably in much better shape for AI than you would think. AI is a complement to Apple. Like to the extent they can add AI to their phones, to their experiences, the better those experiences are going to be. But AI is not yet at the state where their core products are threatened. Now, it's a reason why they do need to respond in the long run, right? If you got just an unbelievable assistant sort of experience with another device, then you're like, you know what? I'll put up with this device maybe using Android and having a different sort of experience than I'm accustomed to, because this core feature is so much better. So Apple does have a long-term risk in that regard, in that the iPhone succeeds. People are used to it. I think there's aspects of the user experience that are better if you use other Apple products, the whole ecosystem, all these sorts of things. And just habit is a very important thing. Like, so that's a risk in the long run, but in the short to medium run, they have time, right? And they have time, and their goal is to make sure the AI experience on the phones is good enough that people don't even trial sort of the alternative, or they don't want to sort of go somewhere else. In that world where it's a complement, yeah, let's be super open. Let's get the community engaged. Let's get sort of feedback. Let's get this sort of aspect going on, because they're not selling AI as a product. AI is going to be a feature of the iPhone product. Apple's very, very secretive about products. They're, as appropriately so, can be very open about underlying technology. You mentioned the Chrome browser. The Chrome browser is built on the underlying engine is Chromium. Chromium is a fork of WebKit, which is Apple's browser technology, which, I mean, this came from an original open source project called I can't remember, but basically the entire modern ecosystem of browsers is built on an Apple foundation. They built out WebKit. It was an open source project. It was widely used. Now, again, it diverted. Google took it in a different direction, and Chromium is by far the biggest sort of underlying engine now. But it's built on WebKit at the end. But that was an example where the web, long seen as a big threat to Apple, and Apple treated it appropriately as this is a complementary product. We should make it free. We should get sort of widespread investment. We should get people everywhere sort of building on this, on our stack, so we're not in a situation versus Internet Explorer back in the day where Internet Explorer had certain features proprietary that wasn't on Apple's platforms. No, for Apple, the web being available to everyone, be on every device, is a huge benefit, because if the web is not a differentiator between different hardware platforms, then suddenly we're in a much better competitive spot than we were back against Windows in the day, when applications were built for the Windows API, and it was a huge lift to get them to work on Mac OS. If we're just asking developers, hey, just make sure it works on WebKit, and WebKit's available in lots of places, suddenly our products can compete on different arenas. They can compete on the user experience. They can compete on the industrial design. They can compete on all the aspects that Apple wins on. This is just strategy 101. You want the areas.
It's very, very helpful context for all the Apple fawning that I saw for the last 48 hours, because I saw the fawning and was like, that actually seems kind of out of character for Apple. I wonder what's going on there. And now I know. So thank you for closing the loop in terms of Apple's behavior.
Well, it applies to Meta. Why is Meta open sourcing their models? Why are they trying to get why do they have PyTorch, a super important sort of development framework for this sort of stuff? Because it's the same thing. They monetize they own the inventory, the surface area in which people will consume a lot of these products, in which they, like WhatsApp, the payoff for AI there is having a stand-in so people can have click to message ads at scale, even in the West where labor costs are high. And that's all complementary to putting an ad on Instagram that you're interested in, right? And
Mhm.
so this is like this is probably the single most important strategy lesson for to understand tech broadly. And I think the person that really articulated this very well, an all-time tech article, like you have the list of like the top 5 understanding tech articles of all time. This is on the list, called Commoditizing Your Compliments by Joel Spolsky, who was a former Windows guy. He started Stack Overflow, like the coding site. He's done a lot of stuff, but he had this must-read blog sort of back in the day, and he articulated this very clearly. Like, this is what you do. If something helps make your product better, then you want to make it as widely available, free,
Mm.
open, and you see this again and again. The parts of a company that are help your product but don't differentiate your product, open source, free, widely available. You want to take that over. And so in this AI space, Apple's not going to be selling their AI models. They're not going to be having the Apple chatbot that you pay a $20 a month subscription for. They want to have in iMessage. They want to have it, or as an API that developers can use in their apps, whatever it might be. So in that case, yeah, open it up. Everybody come read our stuff, give us feedback, do X, Y, Z. Whereas OpenAI, their product is their model. And so they are not going to open it up. They're not going to make it sort of broadly interesting and accessible because they don't want their competitors to diminish their differentiation or sort of whatever it might be in that regard.